Welcome, everyone. I'm excited. This is the very big opening of the AgentCraft hackathon in conjunction with LangChain. And we have here Lance from LangChain, who is gonna give us a short talk just after I'll present all the things that you may know about the hackathon as participants. Right, so we have over 700 registrations and nearly 100 open projects already in the Discord. So we're very excited about this and have a very big anticipation of the results. And so the agenda for this short presentation that I'll give you now about what you should know about the hackathon is going to contain the guidelines, the submission, what you have to know about the submission, the judging criteria, the timeline. You'll get to know about the mentors channel that we have on Discord and the prizes, of course, and also about acknowledgement that the participants are going to get, everyone who's going to participate in this hackathon. And finally, after this, I'm going to present the lectures that we have, a series of lectures today as part of the hackathon about GenAI agents by several top experts from the industry. So the challenge is to build a tutorial for an AI agent so you can win prizes and you can contribute to an open source, very popular open source repo. To the guidelines. So the deliverable format is going to be, once you've created your agent, you need to prepare a tutorial that is explaining on how to create this agent, along with a use case demonstration. And so the goal is actually to enrich the GenAI agents repository with high quality tutorials. The development of the agent, you can do it using any platform or framework, whatever works for you, but the tutorials must be in Python and contained in a Jupyter notebook with no external runtime, and demonstrate both the creation and the usage while adhering to the repo's contributing guidelines. So this is very important, and I really recommend you to go over this before you start writing your code, so you have in mind how the final deliverable is going to look like. By the way, everything that I show you here, all the guidelines are written also in the Discord community, so you can see it easily whenever you want. About the access, so it's supposed to be open source access. The repo is currently open source and accessible without extra cost or credit card requirements. And so also what you're gonna submit should be the same. About service integration, you can integrate paid services like LLMs, for example, weather APIs or whatever you want, but also ensure that the core agent workflow can also operate with open source alternatives. Whether you need any external data for your agent, you can use it, and you should submit it into a /data directory on the PR that you're going to open. Make sure that it's kept at 10 megabytes and no more. All the tutorials must be in English, and the tutorials, the ones that are going to be accepted, will be added to the repository under its licensing terms. About the submission method, so you should first submit it via a GitHub PR to this repo. You can find the link again in the Discord community and also in the form for the submission. And this form is also something that you should submit, and it should contain a link to your tutorial notebook, which should be hosted on a Google Colab. And also it should include a link to a 3-minute YouTube pitch video. About the teams. So if you're more than one person in your team, and the team can contain up to 3 members, so make sure that only one representative submits. Only one team member should fork the GenAI repository, and this person needs to add the teammates as collaborators to the fork. And this way, one person is gonna submit, but the up to 3 members are going to be recognized as contributors to the repo. And also make sure that only one representative should submit the form on behalf of the group, and you can fill in all the group participants' emails. Great. So this is a snapshot from the Discord community where you can see the guidelines here. And here is the link to the submission form that you have to fill in addition to the PR that you open. About the judging criteria. So what is important to us is the innovation and creativity. We already saw amazing ideas in the Discord. So surprise us with the ideas, with make agents that can capture tasks where there are a few examples existing today or not at all. It should be educational, so created in a way people can learn from and also reproduce for their purposes. Make it elegant, write clean code, clear instructions, well-documented and elegant presentation. And of course, we care about the usefulness that the tutorial solves a real problem. About the timeline, so now we're today on November 14th at the opening event. The submission deadline is going to be on November 17th at the end of the day. And the results are going to be on additional webinar we're going to make on November 26th. We took some spare time because there are going to be a lot of submissions and we want to go thoroughly and give time for every submission. And exact details are going to be delivered soon after we know after the deadline, actually. Great. So also we have our mentors. We've lined up some wonderful experts to guide you along the event. And so we have 11 different mentors from different countries over the world, and they can help you during this event. You can ask them any question you want, any technical or algorithmic question. And the way you should do this is here also in the Discord, we've created a channel just for this called Ask a Mentor, where if you have any question, just get into this channel, write your question, and also attach a link to your team post about your project post, so the mentor can hop into your room actually and make a discussion with you. The mentors are not going to be one-on-one, and so just ask any question, and any mentor can help you with your questions and needs. The prizes. So we are offering $26,000 in prizes, which are going to be distributed between the first 3 places. And also, very importantly, so you should know that, of course, the winners, but also all other submissions who are going to be qualitative enough and in high level, all of them are going to be accepted as PRs to the repo, so they're going to appear on the GitHub. But also, if your idea was good and we liked it, so I'm going to write about it on the social media, on the newsletter, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and also to give you a shout out in the Discord community. So I've just finished presenting to you the guidelines and everything you have to know about the hackathon. So you're good to go to start with coding with what you've done. And from now on, we have a series of lectures, as I said at the beginning, from top experts from the industry, just about agents. So we're gonna have this in three separate webinars with 30-minute break between. So now, just after I finish my presentation, Martin from LangChain is going to give you a talk about to get a deep dive into LangGraph features and use cases. Then we're going to have a 30-minute break and have additional two lectures, consecutive lectures from Asaf Elovich, from the head of AI on Monday AI, and then from Amit Schwarzenberg from Microsoft. Asaf is going to talk about how they've built GPT Researcher, and Amit is going to talk about from concept to agent creation with Azure AI Studio. Then we're going to have additional 30 minutes break and have additional two consecutive lectures from Vitaly Duke, the CEO of Dynamic, and Atai, the CDO of Copilot Kit, about intro to multi-agent applications and how to build agent-native applications with LangGraph and co-agents. You can find the links to these in the meetup website of DiamantAI if you haven't registered yet. And this is a good point to tell you also that you should allow notifications in the announcement channel in our Discord community, so I can update you during the event on important stuff. And also that all the communication is going to be in the Discord, so make sure that you are there. Just before finishing, I want to thanks again to our sponsors, especially to LangChain and to Microsoft Dynamic and Copilot Kit. Thank you, the participants, and I really hope you're going to enjoy the hackathon. And now, after I've finished this, I'm going to make Lance a host, and you're a host now, and you can go.
Nice. Very good. Let's get the talk set up here. Very nice. Good. You can see and hear me. Okay. Yeah, well, it's great to be here. And I'll talk to you a little bit today about LangGraph and how it assists in building reliable and controllable agents. So you may have heard of chains, and many LLM applications to date use some kind of chain. So chain is typically some set of steps around an LLM call. RAG is typically a chain. You do a retrieval step, pass documents to an LLM to get the response. Now, chains are reliable. They run the same set of steps every time, and that's a good thing. But we do want applications that can actually pick their own control flow. So depending upon the problem, it can choose the steps that it needs to take to solve it. Chain always runs the same set of steps, but we want something that's a little bit more flexible. And this is really, at least my simple definition of an agent. An agent is when the control flow of an application is defined by an LLM. Now, agents are really exciting. We saw a ton of excitement going all the way back to spring of 2023. AutoGPT came out, Baby AGI. There's a lot of interest in long-running autonomous agents that take on all sorts of tasks, and this excitement has really only grown over the last 2 years. Now, there's also many kinds of agents. There can be very simple ones, like routers that, given a control flow, choose only one step. There can be very complicated autonomous agents, like we saw with AutoGPT, that can take open-ended tasks and tackle them themselves. Now, what's the catch here? Why don't we see agents in production all over the place? And what are the challenges? So at LangChain, we recently put out a survey. We asked 1,000 professionals in the industry, what are the blockers to building agents and productionizing them? And this is actually public. You can access the link right there. I'll share the slides, of course. But the main takeaways were this: performance quality, cost, safety, and latency. And then, of course, there's other. So those are kind of the blockers. Now, a way to think about this is kind of more power, more challenges. On the x-axis, if you want to give an agent more control, it comes with challenges in terms of reliability. I use reliability to group a lot of those other factors together: cost, performance, safety. Basically, there's a degradation of reliability as you try to give an agent more control over an application. We've seen this over and over again. That's intuitive. If you give an LLM more tools, more options, there's more opportunity for it to go off the rails. That's the intuition here. Now, LangGraph is really a library from the LangChain team that's meant to bend this curve to kind of bump it up. So basically, as you give an LLM or an agent more control over an application, you maintain high reliability. That's really the goal here. Now, what is LangGraph and how does it work? Well, really what's happening is LangGraph allows you to express agent control flows as graphs, okay? So graph nodes are like steps in your application, and the edges are just decisions or connectivity between the nodes. Like in this toy example, I do some step at node 1, and I then let an LLM decide to go back to 1 or go to 2 and then end. So this is the main intuition behind LangGraph. Use graphs to represent agent workflows, okay? Now, there's a few specific pillars of LangGraph that we've built that are very useful towards this goal of higher reliability: persistence, streaming, human in loop, and controllability. And I'll talk about these in detail in the next couple slides. But first, just to give you a bit of a preview, what are these things? So streaming, give the agent the ability to stream tokens, state, or other things to the user as the agent is running. A very important part of a high quality user experience. That's one. Two is controllability. Allow for feedback, allow for task parallelization, allow for multi-agent teams. So advanced control is another very important of building high quality agents. Three is memory. Short term within thread or long term across many threads with the user, threads being sessions, for example. So I want to always retain history throughout a chat session. And if I come back to an app later as a given user, I want to remember certain things about me. We have all these built into LangGraph as first-class features. And finally, human in the loop, the ability to actually allow human to approve certain actions or add human feedback. So those are the main pillars. Now, I do want to kind of explain that those pillars kind of map to the challenge they introduced in the survey. Performance quality can be addressed through many of these things: controllability, human loop, and persistence. Cost is often addressed by controllability, for example, fewer LM calls, agents going kind of off the rails less or less likely to go off the rails. That's one major problem we see with cost. Too many tool calls. Safety, human loop is a very good way to address safety. Latency, streaming is a very good way to address latency. So I just want to introduce some of the main pillars of LangGraph and how they help address some of the challenges. Now let's get into the meat of some fun examples, like what's really going on? What are some things you can actually build? So in our survey, we asked people, what are you actually building with agents? And we got a few interesting results. So research and summarization, personal assistance, customer support, code gen, and then a few other categories: gameplay, data transformation. So let me show you some stories, some fun examples I've actually worked on and built. So one, I'll give you research. So we've done a lot of different agents related to research summarization. And in fact, we have a whole course called LangChain Academy that kind of builds you up to kind of making one of these yourself. But this was a fun one that I built, and we kind of built it in the course as well, that basically allows you to provide a topic for research. And basically, you build an agent that will spin up a set of AI analysts with different kind of tasks or personas. So if I give it research NVIDIA for me, it'll automatically spin up a few different kind of analysts for you. That'll be like an entrepreneurial analyst, a an industry like technical expert analyst, a business analyst. It'll automatically spin up these different personas. Those personas will all do their own research using web search, using RAG. You can specify the sources, and they'll kind of combine the results together into a final report. That's the overall intuition. We've seen this approach being really nice, where basically you let an analyst persona interact with an expert. The expert is basically a tool or like kind of a sub agent that has access to web search or RAG, and you let them kind of bounce question and answers back and forth. And then we pull that all into a final report. This is actually showing the entire graph in all its gory detail, but the high level points are this. What's pretty cool is we use human in the loop at the start to help you basically determine what analysts you want to build. So you can provide feedback and say, for this topic, I want an analyst that'll tackle this aspect of it. Like if I'm researching NVIDIA, I want some analyst to look at inference. So we have human in the loop at the start of this flow to allow you to kind of to tune who the analysts are. And then we basically parallelize all that research work, basically that interview process between the analyst and an expert. And this is using a bunch of kind of advanced controllability features within LangGraph. For example, map reducer parallelization and subgraphs to compartmentalize each conversation. And then we basically pull all those results together into a final report. So that's kind of the overall flow, and you can have a look at the course if you want to build this yourself. But it's a really nice research and kind of report writing agent that we found to be very useful. Now, I'll give you another example. This is kind of a fun one, but it's a very common use case. This is what I consider summarization. So the overall problem statement is I want the ability to basically look in disparate news sources like Reddit or Twitter or other sources and distill takes or bite-sized insights for specific people. In our case, I set this up for fantasy football, which is a popular thing in the United States, related to basically you build like a league of different teams. We have a league of fantasy football teams in LangChain. So I built this fantasy football bot that scours the news from Reddit every day and produces personalized takes for every manager of a team. So basically what happens is, and I publish them all to Slack. So if you look in detail, what happens is basically we have a Slack channel, and it basically writes every day a bunch of takes related to fantasy football for each team. And it's a really simple idea where basically it knows all the team rosters, it has access to the news, and it basically searches the news for players on each roster and gives personalized insights for every team manager based upon their roster. That's the overall insight. And it uses a bunch of nice controllability features to parallelize all that kind of research and summarization. And then it uses human in the loop to allow me to review them and then publish them all to Slack. So it's another example of how you can use LangGraph for advanced controllability and human in the loop for kind of, I would say, what I call safety, for kind of monitoring it before we actually publish it out to Slack. So another one, this is for personal assistance. This is a to-do list app that I built that uses long-term memory to manage my to-dos. We also include this in the LangGraph Academy course. In fact, this just dropped this week. But this is an app I call Task Maestro that basically allows me in natural language to track all of my tasks. All I need to do is in natural language, just type in, I need to do this, I need to get this done by Thursday or Friday, and it remembers it. And it keeps a running history of all my tasks and stores them in long-term memory, all in LangGraph, all locally on my computer. And I can ask at any point in time, give me a summary of everything I need to do tomorrow. It'll just give it to me. So it basically allows you to interact with your tasks and to-dos in natural language, which is very nice and useful because for me, for example, the challenge is knowing what to do when. So having an AI help me prioritize my tasks is really nice. And it also allows me to input those tasks just in natural language. Now, what's even cooler is I actually hook this up to audio, so I can just talk to it and say, I need to get this done tomorrow, remember it for me. So as I'm going throughout my day, I get a task from someone, I just tell the app, hey, add this to my list, and it stores it automatically just with voice, and it can read back out to me if I say, hey, what do I need to do tomorrow? It'll just read out all my tasks in voice. So this is a good example of long and short-term memory within LangGraph to kind of do long-term task management and controllability to easily kind of add new modules, or these are actually nodes in particular, on top of my deployed graph. So anyway, just another nice example of kind of LangGraph for, in this case, long-term memory, and also for controllability. Very easy to extend with new features like voice. We have a very nice tutorial for customer service. We have a video here as well as a kind of a notebook. And we actually have a very cool and pretty advanced customer support bot internally running at LangChain that manages all of our customer support. And we may open source that at some point in time. But we are using this very actively internally, just like I'm using the fantasy bot internally, the to-do list, and the research summarization. These are all things we use frequently to really like kind of dog food LangGraph and how it works. I've done a lot of examples with RAG. So these are some examples of complicated RAG workflows that all I've done in LangGraph. I have a number of videos on this that have kind of been very, very popular. The main intuition here is basically that with LangGraph, you can lay out detailed RAG workflows really nicely. This is an example workflow that combines a bunch of ideas. One is query analysis, where I take an incoming question and I route it either to web search or RAG based upon its content. And then I basically do self-grading of the retrievals and of the answers. And if the retrievals or answers are not satisfactory, I can loop back and self-correct. So it's basically this kind of self-corrective RAG flow that also has routing. And this is a very nice example of kind of complicated agentic RAG using LangGraph. So RAG is a huge use case, and we have a lot of nice support and tutorials for RAG. And finally, I'll just show you an example of coding. So we have Chat LangChain. It's, again, an internal application we have for answering questions about LangChain and LangGraph documentation. It's been running in production for many months now. It's all open source. It uses LangGraph under the hood. So it's another nice resource if you want to kind of learn about coding. It can do natural language answers as well as kind of code solutions for you. So it's a good example of like kind of LangGraph for coding, which is another one of the popular use cases. Now, I do want to just briefly mention the types of controls people talk about with agents. So on top of building them, like we just talked about, what do you need for control? Tracing observability is important, guardrailing, offline evals, online evals, right? So first, I want to mention, I've showed some images of this. We have a very nice IDE called LangGraph Studio, which allows you to build and visualize your agents in LangGraph. So I can basically interact with my agents in Studio really easily. I see basically the chat history on the right in that thread view. As the agent runs, I can see what nodes are being processed. So it's a very nice way to visually inspect what's happening with your agents as you run them. And we have LangSmith. So LangSmith is a separate platform aside from LangGraph that is for tracing, observability, and evaluation. Very useful. It integrates very nicely with LangSmith as well as LangChain. And I will just mention that you can do a lot of kind of in-app error handling with LangGraph itself. Using LangGraph control flows, you can kind of do corrections or internal checks. And I showed that with RAG. So that's kind of stage one, I think, in terms of evaluation. But I do want to mention LangSmith is very good for pre-production testing. If you have eval sets, you can very easily spin them up and run them in LangSmith. And if you want to do online evaluations, you can also do that very easily with LangSmith. So those are just two things to keep in mind in terms of evaluations, tracing, and monitoring. And we have a large number of customers using LangSmith for all these things. So LangSmith is a very nice pairing to LangGraph if you need tracing, observability, monitoring, and evaluations. Now, I just do want to close out by saying we have a free course that's Intro to LangGraph. All the code's open source, a lot of videos, over, I think, 25 at this point. That'll walk you from scratch all the way up to building some of the sophisticated apps we talked about, the research bot, as well as the task assistant using long-term memory. So it's all available to you, free to use. And I encourage you to have a look at it and feel free to leave any comments, questions. I'll put this on Twitter as well to make sure these slides are available. So you can reply there, reach out to me in other ways. I'm Lance at langchain.dev or rlancemart on Twitter. Very nice to give this talk and enjoy the hackathon.
Great. Great. Thanks
Yeah.
very much. Thanks very much, Lance.
Yeah, that was
This
fun.
is